wasn't until my 70s, with friends telling me about their problems with erectile dysfunction, that I decided to report this finding of ant Viagra at Cameroon in 1999. During my career as a research entomologist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, I lived and worked overseas, searching for natural enemies of invasive plants and invasive insects in their native areas to look for potential biocontrol agents. And as time permitted, I encountered or sought to learn about culture, customs related to insects and plants, use in medicine, food, and in the case of insects, entertainment. In this instance, I was surveying for natural enemies of the old world climbing fern, which is a terrible problem in Florida. This is shows me a few years back, and all of this biomass is a old world climbing fern in a cypress forest. So where's the Cameroon? First you see, I don't know whether I have a pointer, but West Africa, and you see Nigeria in yellow, and then just southeast of it is Cameroon. Well, I usually, before surveys, I do a lot of museum work to get localities, to know where the target plant or target insect lives. And so in this instance, I then supplemented that by going to the National Herbarium in Limby and getting to get more localities for the Cameroon. And while I was in there, I happened to ask Paul Mesley and N. King Philip about interesting customs that they might know about insects. And they told me about ant Viagra. And Paul knew a lot about this because he lived in Yaoundé, where the custom is apparently common. So here again is Cameroon, and there you see Yaoundé. And so the survey was about a month long, and it was mostly in central and southern part of Cameroon, which is the humid zone. If you go north, you get into drier zones and quite different biota and peoples. So at nighttime, we would stop by bars and ask if they had any ant Viagra. And nobody had any ant Viagra. Everybody said, you have to go to the Cameroon. I have to go to Yaoundé. But we purposely did not include Yaoundé in the survey because of its danger. The preceding 2 years, my host organization had lost 2 vehicles and drivers to carjackings. So we avoided that area. But after searching for natural enemies of the fern and ant Viagra for a month and not finding anything, I persuaded my host and companion, Maurice Tendo, might we go to the bar zone in Yaoundé and look for this ant Viagra? So he said, yeah, let's go. So this is a large bar and hotspot zone with dance clubs and maybe 30 different establishments and lots of people. And we understood from the herbarium guys that the sellers are children and mostly women, and they have trays on their head, and they're also selling kola nuts, which are more recognizable because ant Viagra is a paste, so it'd be hard to find. So Maurice and I split up, and we both went wandering all around looking for this kind of person, and we found it. This is Madame Zobo Nargani, and she was selling ant Viagra and a couple other aphrodisiacs reported, and she added salt and chili to her ant Viagra mix. And she said the buyers are mostly men, but also women, and they believe that it works very well. So Viagra is a mix of the African weaver ant and the seeds of a fruit from two Capparaceae trees in the genus Buchholzia. And the dosage here she's preparing was 1 teaspoon, which in today's money costs 26 cents, and it's effective all day or all night. We tasted it, and it was eye-poppingly sour and very spicy. We didn't notice any effects, but my task in this kind of work was not to look at efficacy, it's just to report local customs. So the use of aphrodisiacs appears to be common in the region. This is reports a study in Ghana where about 13% of the people, men and women, claim to have used aphrodisiacs in the past 6 months. So here's the ant involved. This is Oecophylla longinoda, and these are really fascinating creatures. They make aerial nests, as you see here in this slide. And how they make the nest is they work together to bring the edges of leaves together, and then they hold larvae, their own larvae, in their mandibles, and they squeeze it, and that causes the larvae to secrete silk. And then they use the silk as thread, as you can see in this lower picture, to go back and forth to sew or web the leaves together. Single colonies can number 500,000 individuals, and they could cover multiple nests in single trees or adjacent trees. And to acquire them for Viagra, the whole nests are cut from the trees and then placed on a hot plate until the ants are not moving anymore, and then they open the nest and extract the ants. The trouble is when a large animal, such as a person, bothers the nest, hundreds or thousands of ants pour out, biting and stinging the person. So these collectors are rather courageous, bold entrepreneurs. There actually are 2 weaver ants in the world. There's an African species, you can see the distribution in blue, and there's also an Asian species. Both have been used in biological control by local people in China for more than 2,000 years, where they cut nests from trees and move it to other trees. Van Hoos, and a Dutchman, in his broad survey of useful insects in Africa, found that the African weaver ant is used as an aphrodisiac by various tribal people in the Cameroon. The chemistry involved is complex. Most ants have metapleural glands, which are glands on their thorax, and they secrete antibiotics and antifungal compounds. And then also their stings have formic acid and then also complex hydrocarbons. So ants are social insects, and so organisms that live in great densities are more subject to disease. So hence the evolution of this chemistry. The plant component of Viagra are the seeds of 1 or 2 species of Buchholzia, Capparaceae family trees. They're known as Imvan in the Wando. Wando is the local language, tribal language in central Cameroon, where Yaoundé is. And they use the seed to grind it to be a paste. So here's what the plant looks like. And This is a traditional medicine plant in Africa, and it's known as wonderful kola in English. And it's heavy use in Nigeria, and you can buy it on websites, Nigerian websites. This is a distribution of the main species. And wonderful kola is used for lots of different diseases and maladies, and including these sexual problems, female infertility, impotence, and coincidentally, gonorrhea and syphilis, kind of a one-stop med. So there's lots of the compounds. Chemistry has been looked at in the main Buchholzia species, and there are lots of chemicals. They haven't been studied specifically. A few of them have, but there's a lot of biologically active compounds. So ants are used, and other parts of the world are also used as aphrodisiacs. In Venezuela, there is a Dinopornera that's related to the famous bullet ant. It's famous for its sting that is used as an aphrodisiac. And then what is really widely used is the so-called king ant in China. And I've even been to ant hospitals in China, Nanjing and other places. And they're used for a lot of different ailments, including aphrodisiac. So thank you for your attention. And I don't know whether we have a moderator. Do we have any? Please.
Did you find that